It was a cloudy afternoon. The road was quiet. Only a few cars passed now and then. A black luxury car stood parked near a park, windows closed. Inside the car, a calm, confident black woman sat quietly. She wore a clean white blouse, gold earrings, and simple glasses. She was looking at a file, reading something serious, then suddenly, flashing blue lights. A police car stopped behind her. 2 officers stepped out. One of them, Officer Gregg, looked at the black car, frowned, and said, "What's a car like that doing in a place like this?" The second officer shrugged. "Let's check. Maybe stolen." They walked over. The stop, the woman rolled down her window halfway. "Good afternoon, officers," she said calmly. But Officer Gregg didn't greet her back. He didn't even smile. He looked at her dark skin, then at the car again. "Whose car is this?" he asked sharply. "Mine," she replied. "License, registration. Now," he snapped. She handed everything silently. Her hands did not shake. Her eyes did not blink. He looked at her name on the license, Dr. Alicia Raymond, but he didn't seem to care. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered. The humiliation, Alicia opened the door slowly and stepped out. She stood tall, calm. But inside, something hurt. This was not the first time. Officer Gregg walked around her car, pretending to check something. Then he turned to his partner and said loudly, "You see that? Something's off. Let's cuff her." His partner hesitated. "She hasn't done anything wrong," but Officer Gregg ignored him. He pulled out his handcuffs. "Hands behind your back," he said. Alicia didn't move. She looked directly into his eyes. "Call your chief, now." That was it. Just 5 words. But they made Officer Gregg freeze. "The shock begins." "Excuse me?" he said. "Call your police chief. Right now," she repeated. Her voice was soft, but sharp. Gregg laughed nervously. "Who do you think you are?" "You'll find out," she replied. Behind them, people had started watching. One man pulled out his phone. He was recording. The second officer stepped back and made a quiet call, the name that changed everything. 10 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up. From inside, Police Chief Walker stepped out. As soon as he saw Alicia, his eyes widened. "Oh my God, Dr. Raymond," he said, rushing forward. Gregg's smile dropped. The chief shook Alicia's hand with both of his. "I am so sorry. I had no idea you were in town. Why didn't anyone tell me?" Gregg's mouth opened. He stepped back. "Wait, who is she?" The chief turned slowly. "She's the one who trained half our legal team, officer. She's a civil rights lawyer who works with the Federal Justice Board." Silence. The second officer looked down, ashamed. But Gregg just whispered, "I didn't know." The quiet power Alicia didn't raise her voice. She didn't shout or curse. She just looked straight at Officer Gregg and said, "And that's the problem. You never stop to ask. You only see the color, not the person." She got back into her car without another word, but the damage was done. The phone video was already online. People were sharing it. The comments said, "This is why we need her." She stayed calm. He lost it. "More lawyers like her, please." Flashback, the past, that made her strong. That night, as Alicia sat at home, she remembered something from long ago. She was only 12. Her father had been pulled over just like this. But he wasn't lucky. The officer pushed him to the ground, called him names, took him away in front of her eyes. That day, young Alicia cried in a corner, holding her dad's hat. She had promised herself, "One day, I will know the law better than them. One day, they will be the ones afraid." And now, years later, that day had come. The video had already reached 1 million views. People were talking. They weren't just watching what happened. They were watching her, Dr. Alicia Raymond, the calm woman who stood strong. while a police officer tried to handcuff her without reason. But the world didn't know her story yet. They didn't know where she came from, or what she had already survived. Flashback, a girl from the wrong block years ago, in a small southern town. A young black girl walked home from school. Her name was Alicia. She was quiet, smart. She loved books more than toys, but her neighborhood was not quiet. It was loud with sirens, shouts, and fear. She lived in a small house with her mother, father, and younger brother. Her dad worked hard every day as a cleaner. He was kind. He never shouted, but that didn't protect him. The day her heart changed, one evening, when Alicia was 12, her dad didn't come home on time. Hours passed. Then a knock came. Her mother opened the door, and 2 police officers were there. One of them said her dad had been arrested. Why? Her mother asked, crying. Suspicion, they said. No proof. No reason. Alicia stood at the back of the room, shaking. She saw her mother fall to the ground in tears. She saw her little brother cry out, and something inside her broke that night. But from that broken piece, a fire started. She made a promise. She sat in her room that night, holding her father's old work shirt. She didn't cry. She just whispered, "I will learn the law. I will fight with words. They won't do this to us again." That promise became her path. The battle to rise Alicia worked harder than any other student in her school. While others played, she studied. While others slept, she read. But she wasn't just fighting books. She was fighting judgment. At school, teachers ignored her. When she answered questions, they called her too confident. When she stayed quiet, they called her lazy. One day, she tried to apply for a scholarship. The school counselor looked at her and said, "Be realistic. Law isn't for girls like you." But that just made her fire stronger. College life, the real test. She finally got into a top law university. But it wasn't easy. She was one of the only black students in her class. People stared. They whispered. One day, a white professor asked her, "Do you think you'll survive first year?" Alicia looked him in the eyes and said, "I don't plan to survive. I plan to lead." Back to the present now, years later, that same woman was trending online. People were calling her brave, but she wasn't celebrating. She was quiet, thinking, because she knew this wasn't just one traffic stop. It was a pattern. And now that the light was on her, she had a choice to make. Would she let it pass, or would she fight back for everyone who never had her voice? The first move, Alicia opened her laptop and began typing. She wasn't posting a thank you message. She was writing a formal civil rights complaint. She listed everything that had happened: racial profiling, threat of false arrest, abuse of authority. Officer Gregg's behavior. She attached legal codes, previous case law, and video evidence. Before sending it, she paused, then added one final line. "This isn't just about me. This is about every black woman pulled over for driving while black," and she hit send. At the police station. Meanwhile, Officer Gregg sat inside a closed room. He had been asked to hand in his badge, for now. He paced angrily. "Why is everyone acting like she's a queen?" he shouted. But deep down, he knew he had messed up. He didn't check her ID properly. He didn't follow procedure. He only saw her skin, not her name, and that mistake might end his career. The investigation begins a week later. Alicia received an email. "Your complaint is now under full review. You may be asked to testify. Please be ready." She stared at the screen. She knew the storm was coming, but she wasn't afraid. She had already walked through worse. It was dark outside. Alicia sat alone in her home office. Papers were spread across her desk. Her laptop glowed in the corner. The complaint had been filed. The video had gone viral. But that call, that strange, cold voice on the phone still echoed in her ears. "Stop pushing this case, or we'll push back harder." It wasn't just a warning, it was a threat. The fear returns. She had heard threats before, during her law school days, in courtrooms, on the streets, but this one felt different. It felt closer. Someone didn't just want her quiet. They wanted her gone. She closed her laptop and stood by the window. Outside, a black car sat parked across the street. No one came out. No one moved. She stared at it for a long time, then pulled the curtain shut. The department tries to clean its hands. At the police station, things were getting tense. The video had hurt the department's name. People were demanding answers. A press conference was called. Chief Walker stood in front of cameras and said, "We take this matter seriously. The officer involved has been suspended, but we ask the public to let the investigation finish." But behind closed doors, something else was happening. The department was worried, not just about the video, but about what else Alicia might expose. Looking deeper. Alicia wasn't done. She wasn't just building a case against one officer. She was looking for patterns. How many others had been stopped like her? How many complaints had been ignored? She requested public records, and what she found shocked even her. Over 25 complaints in the past 2 years, all filed by black drivers. All dismissed, most by Officer Gregg or others from his unit, and many of the reports used the same words: suspicious behavior, non-compliant, vehicle looked out of place, same excuses, same results. The victims speak Alicia reached out to the names in the records. Some didn't want to talk. They were afraid. But a few said yes. One was a nurse. One was a teacher. One was a father driving home with his kids. Each of them had been stopped. Each of them had been humiliated. And none of them ever got justice. They sat with Alicia, eyes filled with old pain. "No one listened before," one man said. "Why are you listening now?" She looked him in the eyes and said, "Because now they can't ignore us." They try to scare her. A few nights later, she returned home from a meeting. She noticed her front door was slightly open. Her heart dropped. She stepped back and called the police. Officers came, searched the home, nothing stolen, but something was wrong. On her table, her legal files had been opened. Her laptop had been moved. The message was clear. They weren't trying to rob her. They were trying to shake her, to make her stop. But she didn't instead. Alicia called the media. She gave her first TV interview. She told the story, not just about her, but about every person hurt by this system. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She spoke clearly, calmly. "I didn't ask for this fight, but now I'm in it. I'm not backing down." Public support grows. After the interview, support poured in, messages from around the country. "You are our voice. Thank you for standing tall. You're not alone." Her name began trending again, this time not as a victim, but as a fighter. The department tried to push back quietly. They released a statement calling her a disruptive influence. One officer even said she had personal motives, but the public wasn't buying it. A protest was planned outside the courthouse. People held signs with her face. One sign read, "She is the storm. A secret is found while going through old files." Alicia found something shocking, an old report from years ago. A young black man who was arrested for resisting. The officer who arrested him? Gregg. The report showed bruises, a broken wrist, but the charges were dropped after a quiet settlement. Alicia dug deeper and found 2 more cases just like it. This wasn't one bad day. This was a history of abuse, hidden and protected. The courtroom was silent. Alicia stepped inside, holding a folder of documents. Every eye turned to her. Some stared with doubt, some stared with respect. But none could ignore her. She wasn't wearing a lawyer's robe yet. She was just a woman standing up for what was right, but everyone in that room could feel it. She was dangerous. The system was not ready. Alicia filed the case. Racial profiling. Abuse of power. Repeated misconduct against Officer Gregg, but her documents didn't stop there. She included past cases, ignored complaints, settlement records. This wasn't just about one man. It was about a system that protected him. The department panicked. Behind closed doors, police officials held emergency meetings. Chief Walker slammed, his hand on the table. "She has too much information. Who gave her access to those records?" One officer whispered. "She's not alone anymore, sir. She has people." They were right. Law students, civil rights lawyers, journalists, people had joined her. People who believed in her. And now, the department wasn't just fighting Alicia. They were fighting a growing army. Officer Gregg's world begins to crack. Gregg sat alone in his house, watching the news. Every channel played the same clips. Him shouting at Alicia, her standing calm, protesters outside the courthouse holding signs. "How did this happen?" he muttered. His phone buzzed, another message from someone in his unit. "They're digging through everything. You better hope there's nothing else." But Gregg knew there was, and he knew Alicia wasn't done. The letter from a stranger. One morning, Alicia received a handwritten letter. It had no name, no return address. She opened it and read, "I saw what he did to you. He did worse to my son. We tried to report it. No one listened. If you ever need me to speak, I will." Alicia held the letter close. She didn't know the writer. But the pain in those words, she knew it too well. Media turns up. The Heat Major News Network requested a full sit-down interview. Alicia agreed. Sitting across from the anchor, she told her story. About the day Officer Gregg pulled her over. About the silence in the system. About the fight she refused to walk away from. The anchor asked, "Do you hate the police?" Alicia paused. "I don't hate anyone," she said softly. "But I hate abuse, and I will never stay silent against it." They try to strike back. The police union released a video. It showed Gregg helping a child years ago, handing out food during a storm. They called him a good man. But the people weren't convinced. In the comments, one person wrote, "One good act doesn't erase 10 bad ones." Another said, "Why is the system more upset about the exposure than the abuse?" The pressure kept building. The world was watching, and the department knew it. One officer breaks the silence late one night. Alicia received a message on her private email from a name she didn't recognize. "I work at the station. What happened to you wasn't the first time. I have proof." Her hands trembled as she read. She replied, "Can we meet?" The reply came quickly. "Midnight, the old church on East Street. Come alone." The church was empty. Old broken windows, dusty wooden benches. The air smelled like silence and secrets. Alicia stood still, heart pounding, eyes scanning the shadows. The hooded man was gone, but his words stayed. "You're in too deep now." She wasn't afraid. She was ready. The whisper, inside the church, a small sound echoed. Footsteps. From the back, another man stepped forward. Not the one from outside. This one had kind eyes and a badge. "I'm Officer Ray," he said softly. "I've worked with Gregg for years. I've seen what he's done. I stayed quiet. But not anymore." Alicia watched him carefully. "Why now?" she asked. Ray looked down. "Because you're the first person who didn't run. You're the first who made them nervous." Then he pulled a small drive from his coat. "Take this. Body cam clips. Internal emails. Proof they've hidden complaints. The evidence." No one was meant to see back home. Alicia plugged in the drive. Her hands shook. She clicked on the first video. Officer Gregg shouting at a young boy, calling him names, shoving him against a car. The boy was only 12. The second clip, Greg laughing in the locker room. They never file reports. If they do, we just bury them. The third clip, an email chain. A complaint had been marked urgent, but someone changed its status to closed. Handle this quietly, the chief had written. Alicia covered, her mouth in shock. They knew, she whispered. They all knew. Her fire grew stronger. Alicia stayed up all night making copies, one for the court, one for the press, one locked in a safe. She wasn't just building a case now, she was building truth. And truth is heavy, but powerful. Back at the courthouse. The next day, Alicia walked into court again, this time with backup. Other victims sat in the crowd. So, did Officer Ray, no longer hiding, she handed the judge a folder. New evidence, Your Honor. The judge opened it. His face changed. He looked up at Greg's lawyer. Is this true? The lawyer stammered. Greg sat stiff. The court was silent. The judge leaned forward. This case just became bigger. Officer. Greg begins to fall apart. Outside, reporters surrounded Greg. Do you deny these videos? Why were the complaints closed? Are there more victims? He pushed past them, eyes wild. That night, he locked himself in his home. His phone buzzed again and again. One message stood out. We can't cover for you anymore. He threw the phone against the wall. Alicia. Becomes the voice TV stations now. Called her the fearless woman. She didn't want fame. She wanted justice. She spoke on camera. It's not about one officer. It's about every voice that was silenced. We're not staying silent anymore. Her words hit deep, especially to those who had been quiet for years. A new victim. Comes forward 2 days later, a woman knocked on Alicia's office door. She was older, nervous. She held a photo in her hand. This is my son, she said. He died after an arrest. Greg was one of the officers. No one ever helped us. Alicia's eyes filled with tears. I'll help you now, she promised. She added the case to her file. The story was no longer just hers. It was everyone's. The photo on her door was a warning, a threat. But Alicia didn't tear it down. She kept it, framed it, and placed it on her office wall as a reminder. They were watching her, because now they feared her. The chief faces pressure. Inside the police department, everything was falling apart. Reporters called non-stop. Protesters stood outside every day. Officers whispered. In the halls, Chief Walker was drowning in pressure. He slammed a report on his desk. Get Greg under control, or I'll have to make him the scapegoat. But Greg wasn't staying quiet anymore. He met with his lawyer and asked one question. If I go down, how many others go with me? The list. Grows Alicia opened her notebook. Names. Filled the page. Victims, families, witnesses, officers who stayed silent, but saw everything. Each day, someone new came forward, a janitor, a dispatcher, a retired cop. Each had a small piece of the puzzle, and now the whole picture was coming together. It showed years of cover-ups, racism, and fear, but it also showed something stronger. The power of one voice. They tried to break her spirit. One night, her office windows were smashed, files thrown on the floor, laptop missing. But nothing was truly lost. Alicia had backups of everything. She called the police. The officer who arrived looked nervous. This feels like a message, he said. Alicia nodded. Yes. And mine is, I'm not going anywhere. Courtroom gets crowded. The next court hearing felt like a movie scene. People filled every seat. Some cried, some prayed, others just waited. For justice. Greg sat in silence, pale and shaking. Alicia stood up to speak. Her voice was calm, but firm. For years, people trusted this system, but the system failed them. We have the proof, and we demand action." The judge looked through the files again, then looked at Greg. "You may want to speak to your lawyer. This is no longer a simple case." Greg's dark secret days later, Greg broke. He called his lawyer and confessed something no one expected. There were hidden recordings, videos stored in an old locker, clips never submitted to the system. They were just insurance, he said, in case something like this ever happened. The lawyer turned them over to the court, and when Alicia watched them, she couldn't breathe. One video showed Greg and another officer beating a teenager behind a store. The teenager begged, cried, screamed, but no help came. Public rage erupts. When the media got the video, the world exploded. TV anchors cried. On air, hashtags flooded social media. Thousands marched with signs that read, "He's not the only one." People demanded arrests, not just suspensions. The mayor called for a full investigation. Chief Walker's job was now on the line. Alicia's life changes offers came in from all directions: law firms, universities, TV shows. But Alicia said no. She stayed focused on the case. One of her assistants asked, "Why not take a break? You've done enough." Alicia smiled, tired but strong. "Enough is when justice is done, not before." Alicia gripped the steering wheel tightly. The man at her window didn't blink. "You don't know who you're really fighting," he said again. His voice was calm, but the warning was clear. Alicia stared back. "Then maybe you should tell me." The man gave a cold smile. "I'm not here to talk. I'm here to remind you. There are people bigger than Greg. People who don't want their names in court." He stepped back into his car and disappeared into the night. Alicia sat in silence. The fight had just reached another level. Bigger names, deeper secrets. The next morning, Alicia met with her team. She told them everything. "It's not just Greg," she said. "He was protected. Someone higher up, maybe many people, kept him safe all these years." They began digging, and they found it. A paper trail, closed complaints signed off by senior officers, emails where Greg's actions were, handled quietly, payments made to victims with non-disclosure agreements. Even the police union president's name showed up in some of the files. The dangerous truth Alicia now understood. This wasn't just about one bad cop. It was about a network, people in power who helped each other stay protected, even when they were wrong, even when someone was hurt. She sat alone and whispered, "This is why they tried to scare me. This is why they followed me." But she wasn't going to back down. The media storm Alicia called a press conference. Cameras filled the room. Reporters pushed forward. She stepped up to the mic and said, "What if I told you this isn't just about one arrest? What if I told you protecting abusers has become a system?" She held up documents. "I have names. I have proof. And I'm not hiding." The video went viral in 1 hour. People began demanding real accountability. Some officials panicked. Others stayed silent. A few began erasing files. Too late. Chief Walker falls. The mayor ordered a formal investigation. Within days, Chief Walker was forced to resign. More officers were placed on leave. Alicia stood in court as the names were read. Out, one by one. Some of the people in the room cried. Others cheered, but Alicia stayed quiet. She wasn't done yet. Greg makes a move. Inside his holding cell, Greg watched everything unfold on a small TV. He paced like a trapped animal. He knew he was no longer protected. One morning he called his lawyer and said, "I'll talk. I'll name every name. But I want a deal." The lawyer paused. "You're ready to bring down the whole tree?" Greg nodded. "If I go down, I'm not going alone." A secret meeting request. Alicia received a call from the state prosecutor. "Greg wants to speak to you, in person." She froze. Why me? Because he says he respects you, even if he hates you. Alicia agreed. They met inside a secured room, no cameras, no press. Greg looked different, tired, broken, but serious. He leaned forward and whispered, I wasn't the worst one. I was just the one who got caught. Alicia sat alone in her office. The file from Greg was open on the table. So many names, so many secrets. She knew what this meant now. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting against something much bigger. A system built to protect the powerful. A system that never expected someone like her to rise. The final move begins. She took a deep breath and picked up the phone. I need to speak with the federal investigators. I have something they need to see. That same evening, she handed over everything, emails, documents, videos, names. One by one, the dominoes began to fall. The shock across. The country news channels went wild. Breaking corrupt police network exposed. Senator linked to suppression of justice. Brave woman lawyer destroys decades of cover-ups. People cheered in the streets. Victims she'd never met sent. Her messages, thank you. You gave us a voice. Even those who once stayed silent now stood beside her. The courtroom turns in her favor. Back in court, Greg was sentenced. Years in prison. No deal could save him now. Not after the truth came out. The judge spoke strongly. Your abuse of power ends today, and it ends because of one woman who refused to give up. People clapped, some cried, and Alicia simply smiled. The system shaken but not broken. The senator resigned. 3 judges were removed. The police department was restructured. New laws were passed to protect victims and punish corrupt officers. The system still had flaws, but now it was bleeding, and it all started because one woman said, no more. Alicia's life. After the storm people offered her jobs, book deals, interviews, she accepted none. She opened a small center called Truth First. It helped victims of injustice, free legal help, real voices, real change. She visited schools, telling young girls, they may laugh at your skin, they may ignore your pain, but never forget, your truth is your power. Full circle. Moment one afternoon as she walked through the courthouse. She saw a familiar man, an officer standing outside. It was Ray, the one who gave her the first USB. He saluted her. You changed everything, he said. She shook her head gently. No, we did.